Okay, let's get one thing straight. You are not my boss. However, while you aren't the boss of me, if you were the boss of me, I would be knocking on your office door today to be like, hey boss, I've been working really hard. I'm not saying I was not working hard. And I possibly, maybe was too ambitious. And I am halfway through making about 6 videos. 6 very ambitious videos. One of them, you'll be excited to hear, is another unhinged PowerPoint presentation, a la the one I did about Wicked, but not about Wicked, it's about cake. Lots of videos. I've been off-roading, I've been on field trips to film videos, it's been a whole thing. Anyway, my disk space is full of work, but none of it has bloomed. None of it has risen or baked. None of it is ready to come out of the oven and be chopped up and served to loads of strangers on the internet. In fact, I think if it was served to them on the internet, they might get food poisoning because it is not yet cooked. Do you see what I mean, boss? Do you think I could have an extension? Do you think maybe we could scale things back for this week and just take it easy? Because I'm trying to not get burned out, not because I think it might be good for me, but because I wrote a book about how not to get burnt out, and I think if I get burnt out, it might delegitimize that revenue stream. No? Don't you think? And you would say, yeah, Liam, that's fine. You can just talk about books this week. You love talking about books. In fact, wasn't your channel just founded on you sitting in front of the camera and talking about books and not really editing it very much and just chatting people's ear off about that? In fact, everything you've done since then has been a little bit like not what people were promised. You've gone a little bit off road, and actually maybe you need to come back to your roots and chat about books. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I hope that's okay, and safe in the knowledge, hopefully, that you believe me, that I have been working hard. It's just all, it's on the way. So yeah, I've picked, basically today I thought I'd just chat about books, and to keep things brief, I have picked 3 books that I have read and I want to talk to you about, and 3 books I haven't read but I'm really excited to talk to you about, and I haven't really had an excuse to talk about them on the internet yet. So grab a cup of coffee, put your little tootsies up, make sure you don't have any distractions, and let's just have a chat. Actually, no, have a distraction. If you want to knit, I think that would be on brand. I think that would be totally fine. In fact, I think it's disrespectful if you don't knit. Okay, right. Let's talk about books that I have read recently. This first one, The Story of a Heart by Rachel Clark. I am capable of talking about this book at great length. I know that because I just uploaded a radically over time podcast to my Patreon feed, which is for patrons only, members of the Gumption Club, in which I drivelled about this book for about 30 minutes. I'm not going to do that here, but what you do need to know is that I don't think I have ever cried in a podcast recording before. And I cried 3 times while trying to tell my patrons about this book. This is The Story of a Heart by Rachel Clark. It is a Sunday Times bestseller. But that's not why I wanted to read it. I wanted to read it because it is on the Women's Prize long list, and it's one of the books that I unboxed for you when I was telling you about what is on the Women's Prize non-fiction long list. And I really want to support the non-fiction list in particular because that is at the moment where there is the most disparity for female writers. And I unboxed this book and was a little bit like, oh, it's the most colourful book in the box, so I probably will like this. But then I also looked at it and I was like, I'm not sure about this cover, lads. It's a bit 90s. It's cool, but it also veers on the naff. Do you know what I mean? So I say that, not to be a little bitch, but to emphasise how important it is to follow prizes and be open to reading things that you wouldn't otherwise because you trust the source. And the source for me was the Women's Prize non-fiction judges. And I was like, they know what they're talking about. People who are picked to be judges usually do know what they're talking about. I'll give it a go. So this is about, stay with me, it's about organ donation, but it's much more than that. It's 2 very interesting stories about 2 9-year-old children. One of which is in a horrible car accident, something that I, again, if you are not a stranger to this channel, you'll know I struggle to read about, but I trusted the process and I was like, I think this book is going to be good. I think it's worth me getting a little bit uncomfortable at that to hear the story. One 9-year-old who's in a really horrible car accident and is very, very severely injured, and one 9-year-old who has been on a waiting list for a heart for about a year. Suffice to say, it follows the journey of the heart from one body of a 9-year-old to another body of a 9-year-old and all the people that interact with them on the way. However, this is not trauma porn. This is not like, oh, isn't this a sad story? Let's stare at it for a while. It is an incredibly well-crafted non-fiction book about not only these two children and what their families go through, but also the origins of A&E. Why it took so long for us to realise that maybe transplanting hearts was possible. We realised that hundreds of years ago, but we were hesitant to actually research it and do it and trial it because of the sacred nature of the heart. Like, it's genuinely, until quite recently, where humans thought their souls were. So we thought that it was like wrong to do this thing that we knew was possible. And how many activists and experts and medical researchers have been part of the process of not only like medically making heart transplants possible, but also society allowing transplants to be possible. And it is just so freaking interesting. I read it so fast, I couldn't put it down in a kind of like almost kind of mesmerizing way. The way it's written is really beautiful and honors the families, I think, really respectfully. And in a very unusual way, the families do get to meet each other, which isn't something that like is planned, but in this situation, very unusual situation, they did get to meet each other, and the significance of that. I'm simply going to stop talking about this book now, because if I start going into more detail, I will cry in front of you, and nobody wants that. If you want to hear me cry, you're going to have to pay $1 to join the Patreon. Anyway, suffice to say, I'm really glad that I listened to the judges and read that one. It's on the shortlist. We don't know if it's won yet, but I think of all of the books that I've read for the shortlist so far, I am absolutely gunning for that one. Like, I am going to be like, I might even take my copy with me to the awards ceremony and just walk around with it like, do you have a minute to hear about the story of the heart? Absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, another book that I read, this time for Patreon read along, which are the kind of book clubs that I run for my patrons. And what we do is we vote on which book we're going to read. I pick 4, people vote, and then we do a 6-week read along where there's like an ongoing chat on Discord, and at the end of those 6 weeks I arrange a little call and we sit on the call together and we chat about the book. So this one was a total delight. This is a book about, how do I describe this? It's half biography and half autobiography about a woman who gets obsessed with this man who is obsessed with fish. So it's kind of about obsession. It's about a 19th century taxidermist who wants to categorize all the fish in the world and does a pretty efficient job of it. I think at the time that he was writing, he was the person who had discovered about half the fish in the known world. And it's about her admiration of him as somebody who doubles down on stuff and wants to try and organise the chaos in the world, as her life also calls for a little bit of chaos organising. However, the plot thickens, and without spoiling it completely, his obsession with categorising and organising chaos leads him down a very dark path, and she has to grapple not only with her own life and what's going on in it, but also the loss of somebody that she respected, which I think is something we can all relate to. I have some very recent examples of that in the news, and I'm sure that we all have recently found out that people that we have admired actually have like a very complicated relationship with honour and kindness, and how hard that is to compute, especially if the person is dead. So it's about that, and I thought it was bloody wonderful. I think that not everybody in the Gumption Club loved it, and I think that while I came out of it being like universally a great book for everybody, now I come out of it being like, I think it might be a bit of a Marmite book, but it is, I'm a Marmite lover in this situation. I am a bit of a like nitpicky person when it comes to also like getting every sentence really nice, getting all the paragraphs sounding nice, as well as just disseminating information in a non-fiction book. I forgot to say this was on the long list for the Women's Prize for non-fiction, which is why I was interested in it as well. And I thought it was bloody brilliant. Probably not as universally, like I would give this to everybody. Now that I've talked to a few more people about this, I'd give it to some specific people. But if that sounds interesting to you and you're also grappling with chaos in your life, or admiration turned sour when it comes to either people, I guess, in your real life, or celebrities or writers or artists, then I would like highly recommend it. And I think it was quite like affirming at the end and gave me like a really good perspective on like how fast history can change. The third book is Fundamentally. This is a book by Nasiba Yobis. It is, I listen to it in audio, which is why I don't have a little book to waggle in your faces. But it's essentially, no, I don't want the AI description. Get away from me. I want the real description. It is about a long-suffering academic woman called Nadia, who wrote one paper on how it might be possible to rehabilitate ISIS brides, which has been a big thing in the British news for the past few years. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see me talking about it there. She has this academic theory about how to de-radicalize ISIS brides, especially ones that are British, that have travelled and cannot get back. Somebody from the UN, the United Nations, reads that paper and hires her to go to Iraq to try and put her academic theories into practice. Absolute hijinks ensue. The UN, this fictional UN universe, is completely corrupt, very detached from the reality of what is going on outside of its work centre in Iraq, and it's kind of a book about being called on your bluff. And about drawing tenuous connections between you and other people because of parts of your identity. So Nadia also grew up Muslim and is British and has had experience of radicalization in her past. And it's almost about how you can't apply academic stuff to real people. It is a real page turner. There's lots of drama and things like what's going to happen next, this is going to happen. There's some romance, but it is also about the humbling nature of what happens when you're new at something and you're trying to work it out, and you project your religious beliefs and opinions onto other people, and what feminism is and what it is not. And it's a really interesting take on her and her friendship with this teenage girl from Tottenham who has ran away as an ISIS bride, and how much she projects onto this teenage girl rather than what's actually going on with the teenage girl. And I just think it kind of reminds me of Elif Shafak's Three Daughters of Eve, because that also grapples with this idea of what is feminism when it comes to religion and how those things can intersect and butt heads, and about reckoning with your teenage religion. And so I think if you liked that book, which I know a lot of you did, you would really, really like this book. And I was so impressed by it. I thought it was I don't know how she pulled off so many different things at once, but it was kind of gripping, page turny, but also incredibly reflective, and sit back and think about philosophical ideas. So yeah, really unusual. That is on the shortlist for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I will be rooting for that so far. Been trying some of the other books, but I don't think any of them are measuring up. So I think that maybe Fundamentally might be my pick so far. In terms of books that I have got recently that I'm excited about, I will quickly run you through them. I recently Craig bought for my birthday, because we went on a little bookshop crawl in Bristol, The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which is one that many people have raved to me about, and I have never read. And because it's about a vegetarian, I was like, I'm actually interested in the discussions around meat eating in fiction now, so maybe this is the time. So Craig bought me this, and I have been reading it very, very fast. It's very, very easy to read, and I think I'm enjoying it so far. It reminds me of a few other books when it comes to its style, but I don't want to say what those are yet because I haven't finished the book. But I kind of wish that I'd read this while I was in a book club, because I think it's going to be even more fun to talk about than it is to read, if that makes sense. And then I also bought The Expanded Earth by Mikey Please as a little birthday present to myself. And this is one I discovered in a bookshop called Book House in Bristol, and it's one that I had never heard of before. But it is basically, I kind of love a book about an impossible premise that I'm like, how would you write about this? And I also love a book with pictures, of which this has both. It has loads of let me show you the style of the pictures, but they're really beautiful things at the beginning of every chapter. Where's the one that really sold me? Oh yeah, this kind of stuff, in with loads of prose text. Okay, the premise is it's about an end of the world kind of book, a kind of dystopian book, but what would happen if everybody in the world at the same time shrunk to the size of a borrower? Bad things will happen. Lots of people would instantly die, because they'd be like, under moving vehicles that are now not being driven by anybody or eaten very fast by seagulls, etc. But this is a book about what the survivors do now they're miniature in a normal sized world. And I just want to see how anyone would approach pulling that off. And I look forward to watching. And then finally, another book that Craig bought me for my birthday, this one he chose himself, is Mavericks, The Life, Stories and Lessons of History's Most Extraordinary Misfits by Jenny Draper. Jenny Draper, or Jay Draper as she's known on YouTube, is, I'm going to say it, I think my favourite YouTube historian. And I watch quite a lot of She is an incredible video essayist on YouTube, and she's recently released this book. And of course, I want to hear more of her thoughts in book form. And she is also a professional London tour guide. So I think a lot of this history will be to do with London, which is one of my favourite kinds of British history. I'm a really big into my walking tours. So sign me up. I'm really, really excited to have. In fact, I'm going to put this by my bed now because I think it would be a really good one to have beside your bed, because it's all like very short chapters about different people. So yes, they're all the books that I'm excited to read. Unfortunately, I have only been allocated a human amount of hours in my life, which is very rude because I think I have ambitions beyond that, and I don't know why I'm being limited by my one human life to read all the books, because I would like to read more books than there are years in my projected medical existence. If you relate, please comment below. And thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you're excited for all of the videos that I have half done. Like a half-assed human that I am, and I'm hoping to show those to you soon. Thank you as always to the Gumption Club who tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening on Patreon. They're great. In exchange, they get a podcast pretty much every week where I talk about the books that I'm reading, the stuff that I'm thinking about that isn't quite ready to be in a video, and sometimes I cry. So if that's your bag, the Gumption Club podcast could be yours. And also shout out to them, because it's because of them that in this weird place of the digital employment sphere, I still get normal workers' rights. Like I can still take holidays and get sick pay if I need it and stuff like that. And that's all because they give me a consistent income every month, rather than just being paid by like the ads on Google or by sponsorships that often come and go. Don't they always? Don't they come and go? Or I kick them out because they're evil, which... no shade, but one of the videos that I'm planning the title is Why I Dropped My Biggest Sponsor. And the answer is because I think what they're doing is evil. And I can do that because of the Gumption Club. Right, I'm going to go now. Thank you so much for watching, for enduring. I think it should be more enduring than watching at this point. But let me know what you've been reading in the comments below and how many books you've read this year. I've read 33 already, not to flex. Some of them were really short though, although one of them was very long because it's Boris Johnson's book. We'll talk about that later. 684 pages. Okay, right. Frog Snug out. Bye.